Welcome back to the Smite Minor League European Edition. Finch here. I am joined not by Hindyman, but instead by Ryan Aggro Bailey. Happy to have you with me as we move into what could probably be one of our better matches of the day, right? This is OutCold Gaming, a team full of former SPL players, up against Simplicity, a team full of former SPL players.
That's right. I mean, this is when we're getting excited about the minor league and all these new teams and all the players that are, getting their chance to go up against some of these former pros and former greats in the pro scene. This is the kind of matchup that we're talking about. I mean, PrettyPriMe in the mid lane. Now, Emilito isn't going to be there today for OutCold. It's going to be Hayzer stepping in a support role. Excited to see what he can do there. And we get to see Dimi play competitive Smite again, which is truly the best news I've gotten in a long time. I'm just so excited to watch it.
Yeah, excuse me if I personally just kind of gush, right? It's just good to see Dimi back. Of course, he's still been in that role. He was helping Space Station for a while in a coaching role, and he's been around the scene. So I expect there to be very little drop off, I think, from the Dimi that we know. He is still plenty fresh and connected to Smite.
Yeah, it's if like Michael Jordan just decided to retire, one of the all-time greats, and but you don't have to worry about your body aging as much as you do in traditional sports. Dimi is part of the best team that's ever been assembled and ever will be assembled in Smite. The Season 2 Epsilon days, we'll never see a team better than that. So to get a chance to watch him play again is exciting, and I think that I expect big things from him, and he's got a pretty tough task. maniaKK, actually his replacement, if you remember, on that old energy team. This is a chance for Dimi to get some revenge, I think, in the solo lane. Whether he would ever admit it or not, because he's a pure, perfect person, I don't know that he would ever say it, but I'll say it for him. I think that he's looking for some revenge today.
It's not the only matchup that I think is very interesting, but though you're right, that solo one is one to look at. This mid lane matchup is another one that's got me very interested. DeathPanter and Prime, right? Prime, who's had some very serious personal developments that has him down here. And then you've got DeathPanter, who maybe got a bit of a bad rap, right? He felt like for sure that he was still SPL quality the entirety of Season 5. This is a really big chance for him to show it. If he can come out and look good against someone like Prime, who dragged Obey into relevancy in the fall split, I mean, that's about as good a case as you can make.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think DeathPanter proved a lot of the doubters or the haters wrong during the Insignum's run during the pre-World sort of tournament, but you're right. I think when you have any opportunity to go up against a team of this caliber, where you're playing up against the PrettyPrimes and the Dimis, you're gonna have to you're gonna step up a little bit and try and make a statement and show everybody just how good you are. And I think this is a team that DeathPanter can do very well with. I mean, you look across the board, Simplicity looks pretty strong. The only question mark could potentially be StreakUp, but even he had some good performances last year, a part of Sacred Speed Buffs. So I think that this Simplicity team as a whole looks very, very strong to me. It's just, are they strong enough to beat OutCold, which is just an absurd roster across the board. And we're talking about an absurd roster, and Emilito isn't playing for them today.
Right, that's right. Yeah, we're adding Emilito to this later on. It's pretty hard to believe how good some of these teams are as we move into the picks and bans for game number 1. And we really haven't even given them, I feel like, enough credit yet. Faeles is on this team. Genetics, who I think also very much showed how strong he could be. Look what a difference he made to Insignum when he unfortunately wasn't able to finish playing with them. I mean, it's stacked on both of these sides. I expect for this to be a very good game. If it ends up being one-sided, I don't think this is that indicative for either team. It's just a tough matchup right out the gate, but I expect this to be a very close set.
I still think that OutCold should be favored here. I think that OutCold should be favored in every game they play the rest of the year in the minor league. That's the way. That's the way I feel about how
especially
strong
once
this team
Immel's
can
in there.
be.
Yes,
yes, exactly. Even though Immel's going to be playing a different role, he's playing support. It's still in the duo lane, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm really not.
Well, Najah getting banned, it's interesting. We were just talking about how we hadn't seen much. There's a lot of talk about how well Najah, even some gods like Finwar, can do in the support role coming into
look
this.
at that.
But we hadn't seen much of him. And then all of a sudden, as soon as we get back to SPL players, we're seeing those supports
I was
get
about
banned,
to say, do you think it's coincidence that the players that have the most competitive experience and played at the World Championships last year in comparison to everyone else we've seen so far at the beginning of Season 6 competitive are a little bit more in tune with what we were expecting.
Right.
I don't think it's coincidence at all. No, I think that's the way that I expected this to go. Though, to give to pick Xbalanque first overall is a little bit surprising to me. I mean, Xbalanque is really, really good right now. I think he's definitely one of the premier hunters, but to prioritize him over King Arthur is a little bit surprising to me. And to prioritize Khepri over Bacchus is also something that I'm a little bit surprised by. I wonder if Hayzer is just a little bit more comfortable with the
Right.
bug than he is with the Bacchus.
And I like the synergy with King Arthur. Maybe that's what this is. Arthur does kind of want to just go in and be a nuisance on the backline all day long.
Sure.
And Khepri very much facilitates that with his ultimate. So perhaps that's what the idea here is. And as you said, when you're playing with Hayzer, who is a sub for this team, and also their coach, you might have to make some adjustments that you normally wouldn't. So that could also be a part of it. But I agree, giving over King Arthur to this strong team, but certainly going to Dimi, that's scary.
It is, and I like the Sylvanus pickup, even though it's not the Bacchus, who's kind of thought of as the premier guardian right now.
Sure.
Genetics has proven time and time again that his Sylvanus is incredible.
Yes.
So give him his comfort pick. I'm fine with that. And you're also giving a comfort pick over to maniaKK in the form of Cerberus. This is something that he's been playing all last year. And with all the healing that Arthur has with Glad Shield, I think that this could be a really good matchup for Cerberus potentially to try and steal some of that away. And I'm excited to get a chance to see some PrettyPriMe Isis, because Isis is a character we haven't seen a lot of in recent years. She kind of fell off from relevancy. Wolfie was playing her quite a bit for Rival, but that was kind of it. But with the changes she got coming into Season 6, with just the extended range on Dispel Magic, I think she got moved way up the tier list for me, and I think she's a pretty potent pick, and I'm excited to see what Prime can do with it.
It was about making sure that she could hit that at a range that was going to be consistent with the rest of her kit, and I think that's been lined up for her now. Isis strong, PrettyPriMe strong. I am a little bit surprised we're not seeing more focus on this Hera. With Raijin being banned, we might see that here in this second ban. They still have one more, but it's the Agni. So at this point, I think they're not thinking that Simplicity will pick it.
Yeah, this spells to me that OutCold has either practiced against or have been talking to teams practicing against Simplicity, and they've heard or seen that DeathPanter does not favor Hera. That Hera is either something that he doesn't like playing, or when he does play it, you aren't too impressed. And those are really good strategies to have, I think, is show me that you actually can beat me with this pick. Regardless of how strong it may be or how strong we think it is, if you can't play it well, then we don't care if you're picking it or not, and let's not just ban it based on name power. Is the right decision.
And before they go into this next pick, I've been wanting to ask you, how close do you think Hayzer's role as coach is to playing support? That is the role where I think having that outside kind of global vision would help the most.
Yeah, I think that Hayzer's a strong player in his own right, like outside of just being a coach. I think he's one of the great minds of Smite in the game right now. I know that he's a little bit more familiar with the ADC role than anywhere else, so I think that experience playing
being
the Hunter
in the duo
role,
lane,
exactly, being in the duo lane is going to be the big thing. And if I'm in Hayzer's shoes, I'm just really leaning on Spudio to say, hey, put me where you want me. You know, just tell me what you want me to do, and I can do it. He clearly understands the game very well, so I'm not too worried about him.
Well, it looks like OutCold were correct. No Hera picked or banned here in this game, so they never even had to worry about it. Instead, it will be the Janus paired with Batz. Feels a bit like an older mid-jungle pairing a little bit, kind of like shades of Season 2. Batz can certainly be strong when there's other ones burning beads and forcing cooldowns, and then you're going to deal with a big Fear No Evil in the middle of a fight.
This is just comfort picks across the board for Simplicity. I mean, when I think of DeathPanter, Janus is certainly a god I think of. When I think of Faeles, Batz is the first god that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Simplicity is really sticking to what they are comfortable with, and I think that could really help them out here against OutCold.
Let's get into the action then. The perennial top team here in the SML EU with a chance to prove it. Game number 1, get it over to the casters.
Thank you so much, Desk. Yeah, it's myself, Inuman, joined by Anatoly for this Simplicity versus OutCold Gaming set. Totally, these two teams, a lot of talk about them, a lot of big names on here from yesteryear, so to speak. But it's Season 6 now, and we get to see the first look at some of the interesting strategies we could be looking at in the future.
They're looking for some kind of early pressure in that duo lane. Genetics on the Sylvanus specifically doesn't have any escape. So he's going to be a prime target if Hayzer can find a root or an abduct. I think that was the goal from OutCold Gaming. But regardless, all of these players, like you mentioned, have somewhat SPL experience in the higher echelon. Dimi, two-time champion as well, probably the most prestigious between all of these players, has a lot of ideas in that noggin.
And talking about ideas, here comes Dimi for a gank in the dual lane early on. This is a precursor to what we kind of saw at the World Championships from Splice, but yet again, people have not learned their lesson. Chop, chop, chop. Genetics on the run, but the tree will not fall. He should be okay for now and has enough sustain to continue on in this lane. Quick TP out of Dimi now. Still puts him in lane to make sure he gets most of the experience from that wave.
Very early horrific emblem, I would say, out of Hayzer. He got the root off. There was no potential for genetics to run away anyway. You want to maximize your chain of CCs, so you use the slow after genetics starts moving around, especially considering that genetics has the shell anyway. There's no sprint to counteract that horrific emblem. That could have been optimized a little bit more effectively.
Well, the idea was there, but obviously it's not the usual support that OutCold Gaming are going to be using. We've already mentioned that Hayzer subbing in for Emilito, who's going to be moving to that support role more than likely as the season progresses. DeathPanter in mid takes a bit of poke damage early on. And there's a nice pull from Hayzer in the dual lane, forces StreakUp to play defensive.
Not an easy matchup for the Simplicity duo lane thus far. There's just a lot of good control, and considering that Spudio can throw out those acid sprays without a care in the world, whereas StreakUp can't really position himself to get the poison darts off effectively, so that's why he goes for the safer option, the Rising Jaguar level 2, making sure that he'll be safe in case Hayzer is the one that throws the root on him.
And I do think that OutCold Gaming sending Dimi there in the early game totally really did help the level 1 out for OutCold Gaming there. Obviously, Khepri and Medusa, as you said, they've got good push power themselves, but they need the minion wave to really be there to make effect of it, whereas Simplicity, they can start hitting the minion wave right at the tower line and not feel as threatened.
Taking a page out of Divios's book from Spliced, something that they did a lot of in Season 5, specifically at the Worlds, where they would bring over the soul lane or try to find that early gank or the pressure, and then maybe look for some invades after the fact. But can't really contest with this clear from the Sylvanus and the Xbalanque between just the AoE basic attacks from the Guardian, and then also you got the branching bolas from StreakUp. Very difficult to contain until there's more levels on Spudio to clear with the acid spray.
Dimi going to pick up the Totem Coup there, keeping the pressure on this Cerberus in the duo lane. We did mention a little bit earlier on about whether we'll see some changes to the solo lane, not the duo I should say, in terms of the picks. Nice pull from Genetics though. Hayzer will have his dash available, the abduct up in time to get away from that. And I was actually going to talk about Isis, but as you'd expect at the start of the season, everyone's fighting all the time.
That's what you need to do, when, especially in the solo lane, when there's an objective there every single minute. When Dimi clears that, you know he's got that timer in the back of his mind of when that totem's going to respawn. He wants to give his teammates that 125 gold collectively, the extra MP5 that comes with it, and the movement speed. So that way you can also save your teleport. You don't have to use your teleport if you have the Totem of Coup. You'll receive the movement speed bonus as you're traveling through the Phoenix, as you're traveling through the Tier 2 tower and the Tier 1.
Both these mid laners, DeathPanter and PrettyPriMe, actually playing some of the gods that they've established themselves in high-level play on. Janus for DeathPanter, which we've seen time and time again. He makes good use of those portals for his team and lands a fair few of those through space and times onto targets. And PrettyPriMe, all the way back when, the Season 1, Season 2 days, he was an Isis main. And one of the first Isises, gotta get used to saying that, with Blink. He used to go Blink on this to play the aggressiver with the second relic.
That's an old Lassus strat. That's not even news to me.
Oh,
at
you're
the end of
giving
the
Lassus
day.
the credit for that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Blink Anubis, Blink Poseidon, Blink Isis. He did everything Blink mid lane. But DeathPanter playing the Janus, like you mentioned, is important against the composition from OutCold Gaming. It's super aggressive. Dimi playing the Arthur, FrostiaK on the Cabrakan. The only defensive peel option is like Hayzer in the background, and that's a great god to be on the Khepri. So many different defensive options. So OutCold Gaming has covered their offensive and defensive. So the question remains is like, how do they want to kind of group up? I think that the strategy is going to be leaning on genetics, the way they kind of foreshadowed it at the beginning level 1 strategy.
Yeah, I think the one thing about Simplicity's comp here, totally look at it, is that they all want to go in except DeathPanter and StreakUp, right? They want to set the backline. But it does mean that someone's going to have to peel that backline eventually. Whereas OutCold Gaming, well, they've got a nice little balance. Hayzer's going to sit on the back. They've definitely got Cabrakan and King Arthur to just wail in there and have the Khepri if required, while Hayzer can sit at the back and protect Prime and Spudio a little bit more. We'll see how Simplicity make this work when we get to the teamfight stage.
They have a lot of control. You can tell PrettyPriMe is just waiting to throw out that Spirit Ball if Hayzer can find anyone out of position. Genetics leaning towards the left side wall. Very smart, knowing that there's some kind of shenanigans brewing on the right side.
Both telegraphed. I think they got spotted on the right, OutCold Gaming, but also Simplicity, by stepping to the left, they show that they were aware of the situation there. So maybe they think there's a ward around, which there is in the top right-hand corner of those Harpies.
And that's an important trick to apply into your own games at home for the viewers, where it doesn't matter what lane you are, solo, hunter, even in the mid lane, if you expect a specific angle, just hug the opposite side wall. So if you're in the hunter here, in the case for Simplicity, hug the left side wall.
Funny enough, though, seeing the two SML games we've seen so far today, we've seen a lot of Transcendence builds out of the hunters. I've heard a lot of talk about Runeforge being a go-to for some of the hunters, but it is you know, god-specific, ones that can make use of the Runeforge a little bit more. But I expect to see a couple more of them, totally, and not necessarily just ones that are really good with Transcendence.
I mean, the best god, obviously, is going to be Cerberus, considering he has the built-in Frostbound Hammer in the Winter stance. But I think other gods can still take benefit from the Runeforge, as long as your teammates have necessary or just the adequate amount of CCs that you can follow up. And more importantly, it's the timing that you complete the Runeforge. If you're expecting an aggressive jungle gank, that extra health is going to keep you alive.
Funny enough, that Runeforge for Medusa could be pretty good. Then when you look at the comp she's got behind her, Spudio has so much CC on his team that it could help out with that. Don't know if we'll see it now, though, the Transcendence being looked at early on. maniaKK level 8 versus Dimi. That is a matchup I've seen time and time again. Funnily enough, both were last seen in the Pro League playing for Energy.
Oh, Dimi, though, a little aggressive. I could talk about this matchup forever, honestly, but I want to talk more about what Dimi opted to build into. If we just hover over this item, the Talisman of Energy is so good in terms of team fighting in the lanes or the later stages of the game, but going for it this early is surprising to me because, yes, you're against the Magical Guardian and you have the protections and the health, but normally you would be building into the Anquilate because you want to kind of silence out the Ghastly Breath from maniaKK, but I think the different mindset for Dimi is to get that boost of movement speed to chase down maniaKK because Dimi's going to outclear maniaKK every single wave. It just takes too long for maniaKK to clear the wave, so that extra movement speed and attack speed is going to be beneficial to find a kill. Now, that attack speed doesn't actually help Dimi on the King Arthur. That gets converted into energy gain when you use abilities. So the idea is spam your abilities non-stop, and if you're controlling the Totem Coup as long as Dimi has been, you're never going to run out of mana anyway.
I do see the health being the option for it as well, because Ancile doesn't really have too much health, whereas this does give you a bit more of that. Hold a second, Faeles under pressure, has to beads away. Genetics there for support, will get the wisps off, but gets caught by the tail end of the Fear No Evil. FrostiaK's not done though, and it's the tree that's isolated inside the walls. Faeles isn't done either though, as Genetics gets a good 3-man knockup, and maniaKK's rotation is paid off here. Big play for simplicity. Hayzer ults himself, but I don't think he's going to get out.
Not at all. maniaKK just waiting for a cooldown, but PrettyPriMe over the wall. Gonna stun him out. DeathPanter not having the range necessary for the Unstable Vortex. A great rotation at a maniaKK. Selflessly rotating around, sacrificing a wave to be able to help out in that red buff invade.
Yeah, at least made it a 1-for-1 there, totally, as well, which was the key thing, because Faeles was pretty much dead in that situation at one point, but a quick TP out of maniaKK really paid off for the team to at least make it a trade.
And that kill was so important in terms of allowing the first blood bounty going, I believe, to maniaKK, where that net worth is actually putting him over Dimi by a significant margin. And normally the soul laner that doesn't rotate has that lead, especially now that Dimi's getting more Totem of Coups, but that just goes to show you how important that first blood was.
And I think that's what maniaKK's trying to play here, is realizing that Dimi's going to win the laning phase. As you said, he's got the push power, he's got the coups, so he has to make the rotation sometimes to make himself worthwhile before King Arthur can get involved.
And I don't blame Dimi for not rotating there. He's still only sitting at tier 1 boots. He's waiting for his teleport, which is coming off cooldown in about 10 seconds, and controlling the Totem of Coup even longer. So it's all about the timing of when he's going to be effective, which is going to be in less than a minute's time.
FrostiaK is on this right-hand side too, but blue buff is about to spawn for OutCold Gaming. So they'll surrender this Totem of Coup this time round. You can see the solo laners do care about this totem, but not to the point where it's going to take over their objective mind focus.
It's still going to be a primary focus of red buff, purple buff invades. That spawns every 2 minutes, and you're denying not only the solo laner in the Totem of Coup, but more importantly the dual lane and the mid laners on the left side of the map. So focus still should be generally on the dual lane side if you're a jungler. But if you're finishing off the solo laners blue for whatever reason and there's nothing to do on the left side of the map, it does help a little bit to just get that DPS a little bit quicker.
Did watch the console league yesterday and see a couple of interesting different options for the mid lane, but Book of Thoth is something that is starting to rise once again as the major buy for most of these mid laners. As we check in with Dimi using Excalibur, don't worry, it won't go away. It'll be back up in a second with the energy regen.
It's a 20-second cooldown, and considering that Dimi does have Talisman of Energy, which gets him that boosted attack speed after killing a wave, that's going to be extra energy gain. So yeah, Dimi needs 80 energy to use that Excalibur's Wrath, and it's going to be very easy, especially when you could stack it up onto the Totem of Coup.
Yeah, the one thing I've noticed is that as time's gone on, less people seem to use the Sundered Strike, looking to save it for Excalibur. consistently. When he first came out, I think his energy game was a little bit low, and so we didn't really get to see too many Excalibur's Wrath. But I think it may have caused a bit of a problem. But look at this man fight in the dual lane. Spudio and StreakUp going at it, and Spudio could have been in a bit of trouble there, but he just skirted away in time, away from the range from the Darkest of Nights.
I think StreakUp could have used a couple more basic attacks during Darkest of Nights. Only threw out one there. It wouldn't have been a kill anyway, but it would have got Spudio a little bit lower, maybe forced him to go back even deeper into his tower. Now Hayzer's forced to hold this wave outside of the tower line, while the rotation from StreakUp is just freedom.
Coup being fought over. Dimi with a bit of an advantage here. As you can see, it's more red than blue. And that's the best way you'll see it, as it gets popped for Dimi once again. When you've got, what, 7 abilities on cooldown that can deal damage? I don't know what happened to Prime there.
PrettyPriMe just isolated in no man's land. The thing was, Hayzer had to rotate to dual lane to cover the wave for Spudio, and as a result, PrettyPriMe tried to contest those oracles, just the wrong place at the wrong time. And yeah, you were talking about all the cooldowns from Dimi. Now, they are relatively long cooldowns. All of his abilities are 14 seconds with the exception of the third ability, which is 16 seconds, but you have access to 6 of them.
Yeah.
And then the ultimate, which is 20-second cooldown, and you have access to 2 of those, and you basically have the Sundering Strike every so often as long as you're spamming those abilities.
maniaKK in the mid lane now after rotating out of solo for a bit of poke on FrostiaK, but Dimi's also turning up to make sure he's not the only one here. We'll clear the wave out, just knowing Prime's on his way back from base after that tumble that gave Simplicity a 2-1 lead at the moment. Gold, relatively even, as you'd expect at the moment. The Gold Furies will come into account a little bit later on in this game, but not as much aggression as you expect. I say that as FrostiaK now looking for this red again.
This time it's Dimi that makes the rotation first. maniaKK is in the mid lane, making his presence felt. And I really like the fact that Dimi on the Arthur has such an advantage against this matchup, because simply when you use that third ability, the dash, you're going to be knock-up immune. So you're not going to get hit by that Stygian Torment on the Bladestorm.
Yeah, these two players, well, that twin cleave causes so many problems most of the time. Plenty of spammable abilities. The other thing that people, well, don't forget, but his basic attack being slightly different, that little lunge that he can do, can get him out of some very tricky situations, even if he was crippled.
Also, AoE basic attacks, giving a little bit of a cleave, so it's very easy to clear the wave at level 1, which is surprising as to why maniaKK opted to go for this pick in the first place. Normally, it's Dimi that plays the more passive gods in the solo lane, losing the lane on purpose to have like a better team fight.
Yeah.
Whereas maniaKK is more known for winning his lane early by playing these hyper-aggressive gods and then trying to rotate first. So a little bit of an identity shift for both of them.
Oh, he's going to walk in with 5-2 characters here that he wasn't expecting on that rotation, but that'll just relieve a bit of pressure on Spudio. FrostiaK is on the rotation over as well. Problem is there's wards there, so Simplicity should know that FrostiaK's on the walk over here. And as soon as he sees that rising Jaguar, FrostiaK realizes he's wasting his time, and pressure is relieved for now.
Hard to gank as a Cabrakan without Blink anyway, so he needs that one more level to get that relic available and then really look for that surprise factor. With that Rising Jaguar being as telegraphed as it was, there should be some communications from OutCold Gaming to drop a Sentry Ward behind the Gold Fury if FrostiaK wants to go for a second attempt at that gank.
Yeah, you saw OutCold Gaming actually put a Sentry Ward down there. They're on purple, looking to try and strip some of that wall coverage, but Frosty trying to de-ward near the Gold Fury, bit of poke and return some. Panther did slip the net from the wall, so if that connected, it could have been a different story.
Now, the thing is, against most mid-mages, that Cabrakan ultimate would hit, but Janus going through a portal, going through his own threshold, gives him such a boost of movement speed that your abilities that you're used to hitting get slightly ajar from what you're used to.
Hold on, Tolly. I just noticed one thing that it's taking me a little bit of a minute to notice it. Look at Cabrakan's build. Book of Toth in the jungle of Cabrakan.
I mean, he scales pretty well. It's high damage, so I don't mind it. And honestly, more mana means a longer time for Tremor. So that could be another idea for FrostiaK.
Is that going to be a Stone of Binding, do you reckon? As he's 4-5? Or third major item, I should say.
Unless it's a Void Stone.
Yeah.
It should be a Void Stone because you have a Soul Lane physical, so you're not building it there. Hayzer probably not going to be building into it, so Void Stone makes a lot of sense. That extra penetration aura is going to help out PrettyPriMe.
I'm still waiting for that Stone of Binding just to see how that works out this season, because it is a new, well, technically it's the old debuff, but it applies slightly differently now where it stays on the character.
That's true.
And not on you, so it could help his team a little bit more. Go for your attempt from OutCold Gaming though. Dimi is on the right-hand side. I think he just spotted Faeles at the same time. Darkest of Nights used by StreakUp as the call from Genetics comes out to warn them of the impending doom. That Circle of Protection is not going to be enough to kill the Gold Fury, and that is now on cooldown. The rest of Simplicity now starting to collapse into the backline goes Faeles with a Fear No Evil, hitting PrettyPriMe, getting the beats and Aegis, but Prime is still alive!
DeathPanter with a beautiful through spacing time, clips out one. PrettyPriMe is returned as FrostiaK gets himself another 2-for-1 at the end of the day. Make that a 2-for-3 now. This is just absolute bloodshed.
Solo lane is popping, but Dimi has 3 targets still to kill. Gotta spin to high heaven and hope for the best. He needs Excalibur faster than ever right now, but he won't escape the slows from maniaKK, and Faeles with the overhand smash brings him down. Deicide for Simplicity, and this is a free Gold Fury.
2 things happened that allowed Simplicity to win that fight as convincingly as they did. The first one was maniaKK Stygian Torment. Beautifully plays. I believe it hit 3 players there. Then the ultimate from DeathPanter. Strike first. Hayzer didn't even have time to use the ultimate throughout that whole fight.
Crazy fight though when you think about it. I love what Simplicity did though. Darkest and Night slowed down OutCold Gaming from doing the Gold Fury. Circle of Protection was already down from Prime too. And after that exploded, I was like, okay, so I guess OutCold should probably reset themselves.
So,
but they get chance.
The thing is, trading ulti for ulti, you would think it would be an even exchange for both of them, but I would much rather be in Simplicity's shoes, trading my Darkest of Nights for that Circle of Protection. Genetics was just like bobbing and weaving through 4 players, juking out the Spirit Ball originally, getting off a 3-man ultimate as well on his right. So I thought at first Simplicity was going to easily take that fight off of that, but the thing was DeathPanter and maniaKK made even of a better presence than Genetics ultimate did.
I love the confidence out of Simplicity though up against OutCold Gaming. OutCold Gaming had a decent opportunity of that Gold Fury, but it turned around nicely with Simplicity resetting it and then taking a fight. StreakUp and Spudio both seem more than willing to keep fighting each other, which is always nice to see in the Hunter role.
But Spudio shouldn't be looking to trade, considering he doesn't have lifesteal built in. He opted to go for the Crusher, whereas StreakUp goes for the Aussie. So
that's always favoring StreakUp there?
It will, yes. Off of the wave. Now I believe StreakUp can easily zone the wave if he really wanted to. And the problem is he doesn't have the vision necessary to really make that kind of an aggressive play, but it does get pinged out, so he's going to be looking for some tower poke.
And he does have a Janus too, remember, so if he worst comes to worst and there is a rotation coming over here, he may have DeathPanter use that through space and time and get him out of the danger zone a little bit. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see DeathPanter hovering around this area to keep this pressure going. Bad news is, OutCold Gaming do have it warded, so they're well aware.
Or just look for a gank. I think that DeathPanter is still going to go for it with through space and time at the end of the day, or maybe allow StreakUp. I like that cheeky play. They assumed Spudio would be a little bit closer than he was, but like you mentioned, Hindu, that ward prevented that from happening.
Nice little route coming out from Hayzer, going to force the pull out from DeathPanter and the space and time.
Now he's just showing off at that point. That was such an unnecessary ultimate. I think what he was really worried about was the blink stun from FrostiaK.
All the while, though, Simplicity, like they're dealing with pressure on the left-hand side, get themselves the Pyro. Faeles lazy, but nearly gets caught, and a nice paralyzing spit from maniaKK stops that situation as Faeles gets away with his life for now.
That's where Onkile would have been beneficial. You would have silenced out the Ghastly Breath, prevent the slow, and maybe get a little closer to clean up onto Faeles. But Dimi does get thwarted out with a beautiful stun from maniaKK.
Left-hand side looking for pressure on StreakUp, and FrostiaK catches him with the walls. StreakUp's just trying to box his way out of danger, won't get a chance. FrostiaK picks up the kill as 4 members of OutCold Gaming shut him down.
That's the worst feeling as a Xbalanque. You're about to dash away into safety and just get walled off completely. That's the Hunter feels right there, and that's a 5-on-4 power play now for 30 seconds.
Spirit Ball connects at a nice distance there from PrettyPriMe after Hayzer with the setup. And that's some of the combo you'll expect to see with this Khepri and Isis. Aggro was mentioning it on the desk to do with the Dispel magic range being increased, which means that those silences that can follow up in these teamfights can cause a lot more problems.
That's a big one as well. It's just quality of life change for the Isis, because before it was less than her basic attack range, which is never a good feeling when you have to get that close, because if you have to get within 40 units of anyone, let's say hypothetically even a mage that you're dealing with, they're going to be throwing out abilities which is just longer than your basic attacks.
Hayzer might get caught on the left, but he fails in the mid lane looking for a pick on PrettyPriMe. Through space and time is fine, but Prime juked that nicely. Actually used his ult as well, but Genetics with a follow-up was beautiful to set up his carries to pick up the kill. Simplicity on now up 4 kills and 4,000 gold.
Hayzer couldn't get the ultimate off because of the traveling from the portal. You just can't target anyone that's being banished through the portal, and I don't think was in range to get off the ultimate before the portal came through.
I think Prime had already called for him being safe was the issue. He was like, yeah, I'm safe, and then Genetics hit the ult straight after. Caused a couple more problems. Nice little play out of Simplicity again, though. Starting to try and abuse PrettyPriMe on this Isis in mid lane a little bit. A lot of people remember how to deal with Isis because she's been around. Well, all these players have been around quite a while.
You just dive her at the end of the day. And it worked out there because Hayzer wasn't able to get off the ultimate. But in a world where Hayzer is a little closer, I think that Encounter, using that many abilities for an Isis, could come back to haunt Simplicity if they overcommit like that again.
Yeah, I think the problem Hayzer's having now is that he's doing the aggressive part right, finding these routes, finding the abducts, trying to set up. But the defensive angle, which is where Khepri really does shine sometimes, needs to be watched a little bit more, especially with such an aggressive team he has in terms of the composition. But this Gold Fury is being looked at by Simplicity. They've got a ward down already, plenty of ward coverage around the area. OutCold Gaming know this is a potential problem too. Frosty and Spudio are on the way in.
Second Gold Fury of the game. First one did go to Simplicity. The Petrify
Stolen.
slows out, and a great Petrify to steal it.
And the portal is being blocked by FrostiaK. Genetics will go for it, but DeathPanter ends up dying. Hayzer, meanwhile, did use the ult on Frosty to keep him alive longer, but now that fell off, he falls down too. Fails in, and maniaKK with a big old ultimate yet again, followed by the paralyzing sprint. But the Excalibur's wrath from Dimi answers back.
Both soul laners making their presence felt as maniaKK gets himself another one onto Hayzer. 2 for 3. Dimi trying to survive as long as humanly possible. Spudio bringing in the shots there. There goes the heal. The aggressive dash forcing maniaKK back on out, and OutCold Gaming lose one additional member, then Simplicity, but steal the Gold Fury.
And that's a big play there. The Gold Fury going down at least ties up the gold a little bit closer. Yes, they lose 3 members, but would you go 3-2 in a trade for a Gold Fury?
It depends on the timing, because if it's 30+ minutes, that's a very long respawn timer where I believe Simplicity can take more of an advantage by getting a tier 2 tower, maybe even sneaking in a Fire Giant. Yeah, at this moment, I would definitely give it to OutCold Gaming because it was Simplicity that got the first Gold Fury after a very impressive team fight around the 15-16 minute mark, but the second one now slows them down in their tracks, allows OutCold Gaming a little bit more of a timing window to get back into this game.
Really focusing on Prime in this game so far. I don't believe his relics were up for that fight whatsoever either. Beads just came available now, and so they're really looking to keep this Isis pressured out and down. Simplicity doing a very good job of that, except, well, their defense of the Gold Fury wasn't the greatest. They just allowed Medusa, I'm pretty sure it was just a Petrify that picked it up, walked around the corner, and nobody could block the damage.
That's what it really was at the end of the day. It's so easy to just kind of get lost in that little pit area. The Cabrakan ultimate also trapping so many members. I think maniaKK saved that fight for the most part by blinking in, using that Stygian Torment, getting everybody just clumped up, and also caught Dimi, I think, as he was blinking in. So Dimi was about to make a play, but got stopped in his tracks.
Well, straight to the next objective we go, and it's going to be the Pyromancer that both teams seem interested in fighting over. Keeping on the relic situation, DeathPanter has no beads and Aegis now, so power play situation for OutCold as Prime does have his available, and the blink's up too. A lot of beads still down, however, so we'll see how this works out. As Dimi's working on zoning, OutCold Gaming get the Pyromancer and look to walk away.
Dimi also avoiding that stun just narrowly, investing into the Isis ultimate. I'm not sure if Simplicity saw that, but they are grouped up in the mid lane. They want to get this tier 1 tower. It was very low to begin with.
Meanwhile, FrostiaK and Dimi both went on the same target, so a bit of a miscommunication there, but Panther still goes down. Genetics hits a nice Wrath of Terror to cause some problems for FrostiaK to get whittled down by StreakUp's basic attacks. And keep an eye on StreakUp, who's just boxing in the backline to the best of his ability. But now his front line has fallen, and he's surrounded by 4 members. Dimi gets the double, and this could be a Pyro.
Dimi,
Fire Giant.
Dimi, the solo lane god, really stopping Simplicity from getting anything. Yeah, it was also a great stun from PrettyPriMe, a 2-man stun. PrettyPriMe needs to watch his back as Genetics right behind around that corner, but there's no real steal potential here.
No, but delays are very important. maniaKK is also here and in the Fire Giant pit too. Genetics is taking a long time to die. maniaKK's just trying to buy some time, slow them down, but Dimi's done a good job of holding the Fire Giant for the time being. Blink is still available for maniaKK, but I think he's going to be out of range now and have to surrender it. In the end, Fire Giant goes the way of OutCold Gaming.
And this is the difference between finding those kills earlier on in the game or later stages where those respawn timers are so crucial. OutCold OutCold Gaming. Going to receive Fire Giant on 4 members. FrostiaK not having it, not the end of the world. He's more playing setup at the end of the day anyway by his blink engagements, walling off so many members, allowing the follow-up from PrettyPriMe instead.
Yeah, only thing that needs to probably... One thing I did see in that fight was both Dimi and FrostiaK blinked on the same target, and they both can't hit him at the same time, especially if you're going to use the Excalibur's Wrath, which is what Dimi did there. So, a little bit of communication of like, hey, do we both use blink here? What ability was we going to use to try and burn him? We know he's got no beads. Setup was good. Execution worked out fine, but it's still something to keep an eye on.
OutCold Gaming going to need to get something from this Fire Giant because currently the game is at a standstill. It's tied in the gold department, 12 to 10 in the kills, experience basically even. Tier 1 mid tower going down. That's next to nothing, but they want blood here.
They do get a pull on FrostiaK, but with a full minion wave there, it's hard to really get the tower aggro onto him. Does relieve pressure for a second, but as you said, the Fire Giant is wrapped around 4 members' waist of OutCold. Only FrostiaK without it, so tier 1 in mid goes down, tier 1 on the left is already fallen, and in response, maniaKK will at least get the tier 1 on the right.
It's going to be hard to siege now without FrostiaK's beats. If he blinks in, he gets stunned once. He's going to get stunned almost indefinitely after the fact, but Spudio pushing out this wave on the left-hand side should allow for the tier 2 tower to go down, but instead they're trying to catch out Genetics, recognizing it. The Spidey senses tingling there that everybody was around the corner just blinking away for safety.
It was a good blink from Genetics, but now there's another level of engage that's going to be a missing potentially for simplicity here is OutCold Gaming. Fall back towards the Gold Fury. Genetics here, no blink this time round as Dimi comes in, gets abducted. Where's the damage going to come from? Well, it's a Circle of Protection, Excalibur's Wrath combination. Space and time was used there, but it didn't really find a real target as maniaKK gets his ultimate off too. Looking for a target like Prime or Spudio, but Spudio has the regen from Hayzer available for him for the moment, at least the movement speed too. And still, Spudio is alive. Genetics getting low as Dimi's running down.
How is everyone still alive? FrostiaK's low, Spudio's low. It's going to be StreakUp that falls first out of everyone, the Hunter player. But now OutCold Gaming with their Fire Giant buff is going to sustain a little bit longer and get this Gold Fury. An impressive play from Genetics, surviving for as long as he did, but couldn't get an effective ultimate off when he really needed to. And it was mostly that blink that he had to use defensively that stopped it from happening.
StreakUp's doing a lot in the fights in terms of damage and whittling down the front line. I think the only thing he may be doing slightly, like he's going to work on a little bit more, is when to fall back. He's hanging around just a little bit too long. His front line's disappeared. They're all scattering. And then the next minute he realizes it on his own, and it's too late at that point.
That was just a long team fight. There should have been so many dead members from OutCold Gaming. I'm a little surprised that it was StreakUp that died first in that engagement, and not Spudio, not FrostiaK, the member that was CC'd to high heavens. But I think that they could still live comfortably, I think, Simplicity. The fact that they only lose StreakUp, they only lose a Gold Fury, all their tier 2 towers are still remaining strong. Yeah. None of the Phoenixes are vulnerable, and that just takes away a longer duration of this Fire Giant buff.
But they may still be able to get a tier 2 on this left-hand side, and that's what OutCold Gaming are focused on now. Plenty of wall coverage from both teams in this left-hand part of the jungle, as Dimi trying to wrap around the back and keep them honest, making sure Simplicity can't flank his team and hold the angle. Dimi's very well known for that sort of position. He's done that his whole career.
All soul laners should be taking a page out of Dimi's book. FrostiaK blinking in, trying to stop everyone from following up. maniaKK could be the primary target.
Those beats were very late from FrostiaK, didn't really help him in the end, and now it's going to pull him all the way back. He's still got aggro. Hayzer, though, has pulled the onto FrostiaK, but the tower's gone down, and FrostiaK just slaps Panther to the back of the head. And that's a 4v5. Onto the Phoenix we go.
It's going to be an easy siege, I think, after this one, because there's just not that many ultimates. Genetics needs to get in the thick of things with that Wrath of Terror, but he's in combat. He can't have the opportunity to blink.
Hayzer getting focused out, attacking the tower too. StreakUp has the Aegis. Nice knockup from Genetics to buy some time as Prime was looking for the kill with a wing gust on maniaKK. It won't be enough, though, but it's enough to bring down the Phoenix. And OutCold Gaming get what they came for at the tail end of their Fire Giant.
29 minutes in, first Phoenix falls, going for the favor of OutCold Gaming. Simplicity now needs to play defense, but it's a little difficult here against an Isis.
Dimi did blink in there real quick, looking for a play. Didn't find it, though. Faeles was well aware that they might be camping this corner. There's a ward spotting them all out. Simplicity do have it there. But a couple of members have now tailed off, and some are manually running. This could be a mistake. Unless it's Dimi that gets focused, he might be the one to get away, but that monkey toss gets to Prime. Prime was ready with the silence, but maniaKK's already there as well with the ult, and now bring down Hayzer.
They get one, they need more though. Genetics with a beautiful pull through the wall, forces the circle of protection. They get himself two.
Hey, this game's getting good, totally. Nice little plays from both. Simplicity catch OutCold Gaming back in lazily in the jungle on a ward, and as soon as one or two actually disappear to base, they realize they've got a man advantage to run them down.
OutCold Gaming got a little ambitious, thinking that they can catch Faeles. If they didn't do that little stutter move to go back into the lane, they were out for free. With a Phoenix under their belt, they could have just called it a day and set up for the next Fire Giant with vision, but this time it's Simplicity that can make a power play.
Can they do it?
They could. It's 25 seconds on PrettyPriMe, 20 for Hayzer, 5-on-3 advantage. You can at least force a fight and maybe get 1 or 2 additional picks. But the longer this takes, there's going to be fire minions trickling down that dual lane.
And one of the reasons I'm asking you, can they do it, is because the changes to the Fire Giant. Dimi gets pulled again through the wall. Janek's on the mark with that. And maniaK's going to bring him back into the fray of his whole team. Fear No Evil used as well. A lot of investment on Dimi, who buys himself some time with Excalibur. But StreakUp had his beads available. Brings himself down to earth and onto the Fire Giant.
This is fine, because look at the left-hand side, Hindu man. I think that OutCold Gaming are happy with sacrificing Dimi as long as they can stop this Fire Giant. FrostiaK behind, Spudio and Hayzer on the left.
He's got Blink, FrostiaK, but fails. Sorry, but Blink at the same time. FrostiaK gets knocked up by Genetics, tries to be rude, but Genetics taking the most of the aggro. FrostiaK, though, is trembling for the win. Beats down, baby. Faeles was in the pools. Where did the Fire Giant end up going?
I think it went to Simplicity, but they lose 2 members, make that 3. Faeles very low. He's able to escape, but look how much damage the Titan already took. It's at 50% health.
And there's another minion wave coming through as well. The whole team of OutCold Gaming, they're not barreling down towards it just yet. They will take a tier 2 tower and look for the second Phoenix. So playing this still a little bit more methodically, even though they're in a very good, powerful situation.
It's not a bad spot to be in if you're OutCold Gaming. You can't really defend this tier 2 tower. I don't see a world where they defend the Phoenix. It's only Genetics and Faeles. Faeles have to defend the Fire Minions on the left-hand side. Genetics, the lone trooper in the mid, can only be a spectator as his middle Phoenix crumbles.
3 members still dead for another at least 10 seconds plus. As into the base go OutCold Gaming, looking to end game 1. Well, Tony, people were talking about the minor league and like we should see some action. And game 1 of this set specifically really did live up to it.
They definitely have, but the Titan's still 50% health. Faeles trying to do what he can. Is it going to be enough? Genetics finds himself a double kill. StreakUp gets out Hayzer. The Titan so low.
The circle of protection, man. I wasn't too worried on that one. But I don't know why, but me and you always seem to get the games where there might be a mistake on the Titan or one team lives or doesn't. End of the day, though, GG, well played to Simplicity there at OutCold Gaming. OutCold Gaming, they'll take the victory. Where's the room for improvement for both teams, though? What did you see that needs to be worked?
It's hard to say. The objectives didn't start until the 15-minute mark. Both teams were kind of in this little tug-of-war of like, who's going to get the pick first? I think both soul laners made a great rotational presence. I think what it's going to come down to is protecting your backline. Hayzer couldn't really protect PrettyPriMe for a majority of the early to mid-game, but I think there needs to be more protection onto the Xbalanque in that last game as well, because StreakUp dying in that one engage that lasted 30 seconds was not a good look for his team.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and while we do, the Des will break down game 1 as we get ready for game 2.
I'll be happy to, Hindu man. I've got Ryan Agro Bailey joining me as well, and the EU Minor League is certainly here. What a game that was, and Simplicity, I think, really showing us just how close it was, even though they couldn't close it out. I mean, they gave OutCold a run for their money right up until that last Fire Giant.
Without a doubt, and I think that a lot of that credit deserves to go to maniaKK. We spent so much of the pregame talking about how Dimi's back and one of the greats and all this kind of stuff. maniaKK played lights out this game. His early rotation to red buff very early on, he was only level 9 and is able to get there and make a big impact there. That set Simplicity up for a lot of success in the early game. It's just that Dimi played really, really well towards the later stages, and of course FrostiaK making that big player on the Fire Giant to help end the game.
Right.
FrostiaK, I wasn't sure about this Book of Thoth early on. I was a little bit worried about it. It's a little bit different than it used to be, but Book of Thoth in conjunction with Breastplate of Valor, which is a ton of mana, and then the Book of the Dead as well, gave him a lot of extra power, and it kept his power curve really working towards the later stages, whereas a lot of the time as a Guardian in the jungle, you get your first item, you're really, really strong. Your second item, you're still pretty strong. Then after that, it only gets worse. With the way that FrostiaK kind of made this build go together, he kept getting stronger throughout the game, and I think it showed in the way he was able to play in the later stages.
And FrostiaK did a good job, I think, of isolating the correct targets. He was right there where he needed to be, had backup from Hayzer as well. This felt like some comfort for him. I think in the early game there was some questionable choices sometimes where he might have went in a little bit too far and potentially hurt his team. But aside from that, it's been great. And I think this might be the play around the Fire Giant, or a man blinks in and just ruins Simplicity's day.
Oh my goodness, that is such a crazy play, and it's not just that beautiful 3-man lock-in into the cage there, but it was the fact that he blinked through before the damage from Somersault hit from Faeles.
Yeah, it was just about to happen.
If he gets hit by that, I mean, that is a frame or two away, it looked like, then this fight goes horribly, and Simplicity may have ended up winning that game. But FrostiaK played really, really well. Dimi in the team fights was an absolute nightmare. The laning phase didn't go quite as well for him, but that's kind of Dimi, right? I mean, it was all about the team fights and not the laning phase necessarily. maniaKK made a great impact, though. I think he deserves a lot of credit.
Absolutely.
I think Faeles had some good moments, but I want to see a little bit more from the rest of Simplicity. I think the DeathPanter had some moments where I was, not super impressed. That siege under Tier 2 tower we saw during that replay where he's in a really odd angle and he gets killed when everyone else was disengaging from the rest of his team. I think Simplicity needs to try and get better on being on the same page, but I was encouraged with what we saw in Simplicity in game.